Welcome to Australian Hiker, your online hiking resource. We're your hosts, Tim and Jill Savage.
This is episode 167 of the Australian Hiker podcast. And in this week's episode, we're talking Christmas gift ideas for hikers.
But it's only November.
It's only November, that's right. Now, it's that time of the year again when we do start to consider gifts for that special hiker in your life. In this episode, we focus on the best and brightest products, including a number which have been released over the past year. Now, just because it's Christmas doesn't mean you have to spend up big. And in fact, there's a number of ideas that cost either nothing at all or very little that will be really appreciated if people were to get them. When purchasing Christmas gifts, it's best to avoid the grand gestures unless the gift receiver has been really specific about the request. And I suppose in this instance, think about getting an expensive gift from somebody that you don't really want. If you're not sure, stick to the small presents, give gift vouchers, or alternatively, just ask them what they want. Given the massive upswing in online shopping in 2020 brought about by the COVID pandemic, many retailers have warned of delays to deliveries. And again, Australia Post itself has advised to order early, otherwise you're going to be waiting until the last day before Christmas before things may or may not turn up. So if you're planning on ordering online, or even for that matter, if you're planning on going to a bricks and mortar store and purchasing, don't leave it until the last minute because you may find the product that you're after isn't available. In the following podcast episode, we discuss gift ideas in price categories with something to suit all budgets, ranging from not spending money at all through to the big grand gestures. One comment I would make in particular, and in talking to some retailers and manufacturers and suppliers earlier this year, is that there's some gear that a lot of the importers will be wanting to clear out, and there are some gear as a result of the lack of sales in some areas hasn't been replaced with the latest and greatest, with the manufacturers holding off. One comment that I would make here is that this year in particular, the stores are looking at clearing stock after the impact of COVID and last summer's bushfires. So there are many items which we'll talk about in this episode that are actually cheaper than their recommended retail price. And there may also be some items that we discuss that are in short supply. So if you are thinking of buying Christmas gifts for that hiker, don't leave it till the last minute. We hope you enjoy.
So the first price category we're going to talk about is spending no money at all. And this will appeal to a lot of people, particularly having had such a tough year. But it will also appeal to the recipient. And what we're talking about is you providing a little bit of your effort or contributing some of your time so your hiking loved ones can get out and about. A couple of categories are here are things like babysitting services to let some hiking adults get out and have some time alone, drop-off and pick-up services for hikers to get them to and from the trailheads. And you'll note that some of the hikes that we've done recently, we had to do a little bit of a double back and, it wasn't entirely convenient to park in one place, go on the hike and come all the way back. So, it can be a big help to drop some people off and be there to pick them up when they need it. Another really good one is offering to go on a hike with someone. If you're not a usual hiker, go on a hike with a hiking friend who doesn't have a hiking buddy. That's a really big one. Sometimes really small barriers can get in the way of people getting out into the bush. And this is one I do for Tim every year. I allow Tim to go on a long hike or something that he's always wanted to do by himself, and and make the arrangements to ensure that is as smooth and as safe as possible, and support him in doing that.
Now, before we start talking about gear in specific and starting to spend money, the obvious one is gift vouchers. And gift vouchers will usually always be appreciated by most hikers. The obvious downside here is that the receiver knows how much you've spent, and it can be a bit impersonal. The upside is that the receiver can buy exactly what they want, and if they are saving for that big ticket item, every little bit helps. Most stores will often give vouchers with a range of prices to suit everybody. So if you know that your hiking person that you're about to buy a present for shops at a particular store, go through and buy vouchers from there. That will make things much easier for them.
Yeah, and if you're the hiker, then you can drop a number of hints as well about your favourite hiking store, and hopefully you might get some gift vouchers in return.
One thing I would say with gift vouchers, you will find that they start from very small amounts and can go up as far as you like. So if you really want to only spend $20, $25, that's easy. If you want to spend $1,000 on gift vouchers, you can also do that as well.
Yeah, and I guess one thing to highlight here is that if you're living in a different place or a different location to your hiker, or someone's going to buy a gift for you, they can actually make arrangements for the gift voucher to turn up in your inbox. So that's always a nice thing that you can do for someone. You don't have to physically hand it to them. You can make sure it gets to them in other ways.
From here, we'll go to gift ideas under $20, and this is quite a good, handy little category. It's not a bad option for the young kids to buy their parents presents, and it's normally something that's it's small enough that it can be managed. And things that fall into this category are things like freeze-dried meals. And I know not everybody likes freeze-dried meals. A lot of people like to prepare their own food, but there's nothing handier than had a couple of freeze-dried meals in the cupboard. And if you go on a hike unexpectedly and you haven't prepared any food, and you're deciding to go on an overnight camp at the drop of a hat, being able to grab something out of the cupboard and you're right to go makes things much easier.
Yeah, and they last a long time and they're quite reasonably priced. So, everybody should be able to afford something like that.
Things like hiking cutlery, and for me, the GSI Essential Spoon long-handled is my weapon of choice at the moment. It's actually a plastic spoon. It's a heavy-duty plastic spoon, and it's got a siliconized head on it. It's really quite a comfortable thing to eat with. A lot of the metal spoons, they're just not the most comfortable things in your mouth, and this really is quite good, and it copes with things like nut butters, which can be a bit hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, some of the metal spoons I found to be a little bit industrial.
Yeah, and that's roughly around about the $13 mark. So again, nice and easy, and also lightweight. The Cedar Summit X Cup. This is a collapsible drinking cup that folds away and is relatively lightweight. Not everyone likes these sort of cups, but they are pretty popular, and they take up virtually no space at all in your pack. And again, for around about $15. DVDs and Blu-rays, and we've done quite an extensive review of a number of different well-known hiking-based and outdoor-based movies over the past 4 years. There's some obvious ones like Wild and A Walk in the Woods, but there's also some lesser-known ones that are quite enjoyable. And I know that not everyone buys DVDs and Blu-rays these days. There's a lot of people into streaming. But, the thing with the DVDs and Blu-rays, most people still have a player at home. And as a result of the streaming, the price on purchasing the Blu-rays and the DVDs is relatively cheap. Even to the point of being, $8, $9, $10 in a lot of cases. So they're actually quite competitive with purchasing a streaming movie.
Yeah, and for me, I think I like having DVDs because it means, you have them sitting there and, you watch them and re-watch them. And, when it's a particularly rainy afternoon or the weather's not so fabulous, or you for some other reason you can't get out, there's nothing better than watching a good hiking movie and enjoying the scenery as well as the story that goes along with it.
Okay, so from here we're moving up to the next price category, and that's hiking equipment under the $40 mark, and that includes books. Now, you can actually get books cheaper than $20, but most of them seem to be the $20 to $30, $20 to $40 mark. And there's quite a lot of books in that sort of range. A lot of them will be reflected in the movies. So books like Wild, which can be bought in a movie or a book form. There's children's books. There's books that are historically based and more factual. There's books that are just plain fun. Things like Boots McFarlane cartoon book are quite a good little book to give that hiker in your life. Things like compasses. Every hiker, if they're getting serious, should own a compass. And compasses are one of those things that range from the relatively inexpensive all the way up to the horrendously expensive. But certainly the Sunto A30 compass is one of the most popular compasses on the market at the moment. And usually, while it's often sold for the recommended retail price of more around the $50 mark, typically you can find it for under the $40 mark. So keep an eye out for that.
So the next category we're looking at is gift ideas from $40 to under $100. And the first one on our list is the arcade belt. And this is a big favourite of ours. It is just under $50, but we absolutely love it. It's the most comfortable belt that we've worn. There's male and female versions and a range of different colours. And, we even, when we wash our pants, wash the belt attached to the pants. So don't even bother pulling the belt out, just throw it in the wash with the pants. So, can't get any better than that for me.
And this is sold as the world's most comfortable belt. And that may be a bit of overestimation here, but it is a very, very comfortable belt to wear. So definitely one we do enjoy using.
Yeah, well, I'd be happy to use that framing as the world's most comfortable belt. Okay, and the next item we're going to look at is the Sea to Summit Eros Premium Pillow. And we actually did a review of this one, and we've both used it. It's a really, really, really comfortable pillow. It's just under $70. It's probably getting up there a little bit, but if the need for a comfortable pillow is the really important thing for you, then this is absolutely the way to go. And I'm sure your hiking friend, if it's not for you, I'm sure your hiking friend will have already told you about this.
From here, we're going slightly different to the Wakao Nano Presso coffee maker. Now, in all honesty, I have no idea how this name is pronounced, but I'm sticking with the Wakao.
Wakako.
Yeah, it just doesn't look
Nano
right.
Presso.
Nano Presso will work. We went through and reviewed a number of different methods and options for making coffee, and this is by far the best choice around. It really, it almost simulates the $1,000 coffee machines in what it produces. It doesn't produce a lot of coffee. It's really just a very small hit. I tend to be a coffee snob. I'll only drink certain types of coffee, and this is one of the few times that I like drinking coffee without milk. It really does perform very well. Not the lightest thing on the market. There are much lighter ways to produce coffee, but if you want good quality coffee, this is probably your best option.
That's a big claim to say that it rivals $1,000 coffee machines, but we'll see what people say about that.
Well, at least from my perspective anyway, I've had coffee from the expensive machines and ones for these, and I'm quite happy to have the coffees from these. They really are good. Now on to tent pegs. People can never have enough tent pegs.
No, that's you. You can never have enough tent pegs.
And I must admit, I don't buy cheap tent pegs.
I don't think you buy cheap anything, Tim. Why should the tent pegs be any different?
And what we're looking at here is the MSR carbon core tent pegs. Now, 6 tent pegs at just under $80. They're not a cheap tent peg. Having said that, MSR is probably best known. They produce tents. They produce a number of things like snowshoes. They produce tent pegs. These pegs really are a high quality, high grade product. A lot of the cheap knockoff style of tent pegs, you hit them with a rock or a mallet and you bend or break them. These things are very reliable. And the carbon cores, depending on where I'm going, if I'm going through Central Australia, these are an ideal tent peg because when you're trying to drive a peg into very rocky ground, you need the thin tent pegs. And these ones at around about 6 grams each are about as light as you get, and they do the job really well. So, yes, you can buy some really cheap tent pegs, and there's no argument there. But if you want really good quality tent pegs, the MSRs really do the job. From there, an obvious one for a lot of people is magazine subscriptions. And there's a couple of different magazines on the market at the moment, but the Great Walks magazine is just one example. And an annual subscription, which is 7 issues, is $84. And that price hasn't changed in the last 12 months. And it really is one of Australia's main outdoor magazines, and definitely something that if you're looking at getting into hiking or looking for a bit of inspiration, it's a good option and a good way to go.
Yeah, and I think these ones, the magazines, they're supporting your hiking friends to get out, not spending a lot of money by doing that. They're all about experiences, and I think the magazines in particular, and even the books and the DVDs, they're about providing an experience for people, not necessarily a thing.
Now, the next item we're going to talk about is the Dejo Tattoo Naked Topography Knife. For many, many years, I wouldn't carry a knife on a hike. I must admit, the only thing I do use my knife for is cutting cheese on the first 2 days of a hike. And usually I just break it in half, or I'd stab it with a spoon.
We're talking about cutting a block of cheese.
Yeah, here we are. And I got given this knife, or gifted this knife, a few years ago. It's a work of art. It's a really comfortable knife to hold. It's very lightweight. And when I accidentally left it behind on the Bibbulmun track, I actually went around and purchased one myself because I love this knife. They make a number of different models. They make them with and without wooden or carbon fibre handles. But these are a very attractive, very high-quality knife that most hikers would appreciate.
Yeah, I think so. And one item in your hiking pack that's just beautifully designed and functional as well. That's a pretty good gift option, I think.
The BioLite headlamp, the 330 lumen rechargeable headlamp. This is one we have tested over the last year, and there are so many good headlamps on the market from the main manufacturers. This one's a bit unique in that it has the battery pack on the back. The lighting unit on the front, as a result, is really slimline and lightweight, and it almost feels like you've just got a headband on rather than the headlight. So from a comfort perspective, not the best thing to lie on your pillow and be staring up at the world and reading that way. But in every other respect, this is a really comfortable light that throws a lot of intense light in the right direction and is quite a good one. I'd be quite happy to be gifted with on this one. And last but not least in this category is a product we reviewed not long ago, and that's the MSR ThruLink Inline Micro Water Filter. Now, this water filter is, I must admit, from a point of view of using inline water filters, I've tried them in the past. There are some well-known brands around, but I'd found with other brands, you had to, when you put them in line into a water bladder, you were having to suck the water out through the drinking tube, and it just created, it was just annoying more than anything else. This filter has a background from the US military. It's the one they use. And you do hardly even notice that it's actually there because the impact of it on the water flow is almost non-existent. It's really easy to attach into a water bladder line, and that was part of one of the issues as well, that you, by making it so easy to connect and disconnect, it's a really good unit. This unit has now found a home on my long-distance hiking gear, and it's something that I will take on my long-distance hike, which I'm just about to start in the next week or so. Now we're going to start shifting to the $100 to $300 category, and we're starting to get a bit more serious here. I would probably say in this sort of category and above, not to buy these sort of presents without a bit of pre-warning.
I'm sure you would have been well primed if, someone was expecting you to spend this amount of money. You probably would have had a whole lot of hints by now, I would have thought.
So, again, there is so much option and so much choice in this range, but you're starting to contribute to more serious pieces of equipment for your hiker. The first one is the Jetboil Zip cooking system. I'm a big fan of canister stoves. When I go solo hiking, I take the Jetboil Zip with me. The quantity of water that it boils, the size and the weight works really well. And from my perspective, the little small 100-gram gas canisters will last me for the style of cooking/drinking that I do for a period of around about 12 days. Which means on my upcoming hike, which I'm planning on doing 11 days in total, I'll get away with one canister and everything will fit quite comfortably and compactly inside the actual cooking canister itself. From here, sleeping mats. Now, everyone needs a sleeping mat of some sort. There is a huge range on the market. One of the newer products that's available is the Cedar Summit Etherlite XT sleeping mat. And this is a lightweight, comfortable and warm mat for under $250. It's by no means the lightest weight mat on the market, but it's reasonably lightweight. It's reasonably quiet as far as sleeping mats are concerned, and it is a very comfortable mat, which I don't mind. And the last product in this category is the Black Diamond Distance Carbon Z tracking poles. And I've been using these for around about 3 years now, and prior to that I was using a pair that were the non-carbon version. The carbon version are lighter weight ones, and as a result they're a more expensive pole. These are a non-adjustable pole. They recommended retail is just on $300, but usually you can buy them for less than that. If I'm doing long distance hiking, they pretty much are in my hands unless I'm walking on road or bitumen. If I'm on natural trail, they are in my hands, so I'm not having to carry them in the pack. And I just find they just work so well for me. But again, it's the sort of thing that some people will like adjustable poles, some people will have preferences. But again, these are a great pole.
The next category we're going to look at is gift ideas, $300 to $1,000. And again, this is getting pretty serious in price. And, don't explore this bracket without some pretty specific guidance from your hiker. Or if you're the hiker and you want others to make the purchase, maybe go along and help them do that so they can be sure that they get it right. The first one we're going to look at is the Cedar Summit Spark 3 sleeping bag. This is, I think, what I can only describe as a weird-looking sleeping bag. It almost seems as if it's transparent, but it's the most amazingly warm bag. I think I was incredibly surprised at how warm it was. It's under $670, so not cheap, but super warm, super lightweight.
And I think from my perspective, if I could only own one sleeping bag, this would definitely be the bag that I would use. Yes, it's going to be a bit of overkill for the middle of summer, but if you're looking at a bag that will take you through from summertime all the way through to relatively cold conditions, this one will do it, and it's extremely lightweight. Yes, you do pay for it, but it really is worth it. And there is a female version, which is the Flame sleeping bag, which is just slightly different specifications. It is actually slightly warmer and a different colour pattern on it as well.
Yeah, and I did test it out during our COVID winter months in our backyard, and I was really, really, really quite surprised. I deliberately toned down the lining and toned down the clothing I was wearing just to test it out. And I was very surprised at how warm I was on a very cold night.
Now, the next product we're going to talk about is probably a gift for the hiker and the hiker's family. And this is the Garmin InReach Explorer Plus. This, from my perspective, is my personal locator beacon as well as my GPS. And it's a satellite communication device as well. Not cheap, at just under $700. But what it does mean is when your hiker goes wandering for weeks in the middle of nowhere, unless they're living in a cave for that period, you'll be able to contact them quite frequently and quite easily, send them a text message, make sure they're okay. And there's even the option of being able to follow them online on a map in real time if that's what you want to do. Usually I'll put a time delay in there, so if people want to follow me, there's a lag. But if you want to follow someone in real time, that's the option.
Yeah, I must admit, from my perspective, it's under $700. That's a lot of money, but it's definitely worth the value for the people who are sitting at home waiting for you to turn up again. And I don't know how old yours is now, but I reckon it's more than paid for itself in terms of the level of comfort and the visibility it gives.
So mine's just on 2.5 years old. One thing I will advise people here, there is a subscription fee that comes with this. And for me, the subscription fee is probably around about $300 a year. I increase the service that I get when I go hiking. I decrease it and cut it quite back in the quieter months, so I'm not paying for things that I don't use. But yeah, it's as peace of mind and safety. This is a great item. So if a family are worried about you going wandering, this will make things much easier for all people concerned. Last but not least in our list of equipment tonight is the Big Agnes Copper Spur 2 Platinum version. Now, we spent much of last year being able to test out this unit. And if you go hiking in Australia's alpine area, it's got a white translucent sort of appearance, and it basically disappears in amongst the rocks.
Some people were a little bit uncharitable in terms of describing what it looked like. You can have a look at the picture in the article that goes with this podcast, and you can tell us what you think.
But yeah, it is a full 2-person tent. It's not a 2-person tent that suits 1.5 people. Mm-hmm. It's not cheap. Again, it is sitting under the $1,000 mark. And again, as I mentioned, you can often get these on sale, but they are an exceptionally good tent. And this is one of the tents that, if you're looking for a tent that weighs roughly just on around about the 1.2 kilo mark, that will suit 2 people, this is a great way to go. Okay, so just to round this off, there really is no end to what you can buy the avid hiker. The main thing to do is to pay attention to the strategically placed gear reviews that are lying around the house. And if you have any doubt whatsoever, just ask them. If they're a brand new hiker, they'll often appreciate a lot of the smaller gifts. But again, before you do go out and buy that big ticket item, really go through and check with them if that's, if you don't know or if you want to check that that's what they're really after. As we said, 2020 has been a challenging year in so many ways for everyone. So it's more important than ever to get back to basics. So whatever gifts you decide you're going to purchase, grasp the opportunity to express how much those around you mean to you.
Yeah, I think, let's see a little bit of joy and a little bit of, basic humanity in this just amazingly challenging year that we've all had.
One final comment that I would make here, and I know this is comments that I've had when I've done similar posts or podcasts in the past, is we tend to be big fans of supporting brand name manufacturers. Yes, you can buy things from overseas companies and overseas internet sites, and in a lot of cases, they're knockoff designs. The quality is nowhere near as good, and that's reflected in the price. The price is certainly much cheaper as well. But these companies that we like to use have spent an awful lot of time and money investing in the technology and the design. And if people don't buy their product, the products won't be available on the market, basically. Yes, you can buy cheaper products, but support the brand name manufacturers and support the Australian manufacturers and suppliers and retailers where you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we've all learned the lesson of buying local, buying in Australia, buying Australian if it's at all possible. So, let's get out there and make a statement at Christmas too.
Okay, now on to the podcast, which is due for release next week. And we just want to give you a bit of pre-warning on this one. Next week's episode will be Australian Hiker's 4th birthday on the 11th
Yay.
of November. And as usual, we normally do a year in review. Because the 11th is actually next Wednesday, the podcast won't be released until Thursday morning, so expect it to arrive a day later. The other thing that I would advise as well is if you receive our monthly newsletter, we did advise you that the competition for this month to win a $100 gift voucher to Wild Earth will be the question that you need to respond to or you need to answer is in next week's episode. So if you want an opportunity to enter that and to win that gift voucher, you need to listen to next week's podcast. Okay, that's all for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed. That's all for me. Bye for now.
And bye from me. Something as simple as offering to go on a hike with someone. If you're not a usual hiker, go on a hike with someone who doesn't have a hiking body.
And for me, the GSI Essential, the Cedar Summit X Cup. This is a collapsible. Going slightly different from here, the I can't get the pronunciation on here. The Wakako. From here, we'll go slightly different, and we'll look at the Wakako.